Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History.
Time, like a river, flows. Springs, seeps, and brooks gather at headwaters, convene by gravity to unite, to forsake their mountain origins and seek the sandy soils of sea level. Like a river, time flows, bound by inevitability. The waters gain momentum. There may be obstacles, there may be diversions. Ultimately, though, the river will find its way. Time flows like a river.
Hi, I'm Doug Phillips. You know, they say you can't jump in the same river twice. I guess that means the river waters are always moving, always changing.
Rivers are like that, always moving, always changing. Time is like that, always moving, always changing.
In 1985, one of the very first episodes of Discovering Alabama concluded here in this river. These waters have changed. Our state, the nation, the world has changed. Still, there is much that is comfortable and familiar about the river.
The waters may change. The river, the wild country, continue to give us a chance to pause and consider our place in the natural world. This is Alabama's Little River. And this is Alabama's Little River Canyon. In October of 1992, thousands of acres along the western rim of the canyon became Alabama's first national preserve.
In '85, we journeyed downstream to this point. Join me today for a trek back upstream for a different perspective. We'll explore Little River Canyon National Preserve. We'll consider what has changed and what hasn't. And, as usual, we'll ponder what the future may hold. This program is about a land unknown to many people. A land that in many ways has maintained its native natural wonders. A place of bountiful backcountry, forests, streams, and wildlife more diverse than can be found in much of the inhabited world. Come along with me as we explore the wild wonders of this land. Come along as we discover Alabama. Welcome to Discovering Alabama, and welcome to Little River Canyon. Here in late summer, the water level's down a good bit. Maybe not so good for kayaking, but it'll make the hike upstream a bit easier.
Little River is the only river in the United States that forms and flows almost entirely on top of a mountain. From its origins up around the Alabama-Georgia line, Little River runs along the top of Lookout Mountain for about 50 miles. For more than 300 million years, the river has carved its way through the rugged terrain of what we know as the Cumberland Plateau.
Sandstone, limestone, and shale
These Paleozoic sediments provided the raw material from which Little River could sculpt what is arguably Alabama's most dramatically beautiful physiographic feature.
At its headwaters above Mentone, Little River gets a running start at more than 1,800 feet above sea level. As it reaches the canyon mouth, it levels off at about 500 feet. That elevation change makes for some pretty dramatic drops along the way. DeSoto Falls at DeSoto State Park plunges more than 100 feet, propelling the cool, green waters into the upper reaches of one of the deepest gorges in the eastern United States. Back in 1985, during the first year of discovering Alabama, we made the journey down the entire length of Little River. This time, on our trip upstream, we're going to focus attention on the canyon. More specifically, we'll look at the area between Canyon Mouth Park and Little River Falls at the Alabama Highway 35 bridge. It is the western rim of this area that on October 21, 1992, became Alabama's first national preserve.
Little River Canyon National Preserve was so significant that the people went to their congressman and said that we think the place is important. He introduced legislation and it went through the process and actually was set aside as a national preserve. The National Park Service has got lots of designations for lots of different types of lands that they protect, and a national preserve has a lot of things in common with a national park, but the way that people access it and use it and appreciate it and enjoyment is a little more open. For example, most national parks, you don't have hunting, but in a national preserve, that's a permitted activity. The canyon portion of Little River Canyon National Preserve is generally day use only. It's swimmers, fishermen, kayakers. It's people that like to enjoy the scenery. The backcountry above Highway 35 is for hunters during hunting season. We do have 3 primitive campsites, and of course campsites are open 24 hours a day, but the rest of the park, the rest of the preserve I should say, is day use. When the legislation was written that set aside the preserve, one of the things that was specifically mentioned was the scenery. The Little River Canyon is significant because of its water quality, the fact that it's a stream on top of a mountain, but also because the scenery is nationally significant. A canyon on top of a mountain in northeast Alabama is a unique place, especially in the spring and in the fall. In the spring we have the laurels and the other trees and flowers that bloom. We have the leaf changes in the fall, and you know, that's a thing that people appreciate a lot. So there's a lot of local significance here, geologically speaking. It's interesting that the forces that came together to create this place did such a good job of making such a magnificent place for people to come see.
A walk deep down in the canyon is one way to view this national preserve, but there is another way.
A more bird's eye view. Little River Canyon National Preserve features 8 overlooks along the 23-mile scenic drive from Canyonmouth Park to Little River Falls.
As spectacular as the view is at Crow Point, I think it's pretty impressive from several hundred feet down here below at river level.
All of the public overlooks and protected areas of the preserve are on the western rim. Across the canyon, on the other side of the river, on the eastern rim, well, that's a different story.
We have such natural beauty in this community, and we are known the world over for the beauty that is here. And now what we have happening on the other opposite side of the canyon here is development. And that's an oversight on our part for not securing that property. When this became a national preserve, we should have made sure that that land became part of the federal property as well. So now we have private landowners that are developing that property, putting houses right on the canyon's edge. So it is distracting from the beauty that we have here, the natural beauty. The landscape is taken away from it with the houses being developed. So we run that risk of taken one of the cleanest, purest waters in the world. This canyon has consistently tested as being one of the cleanest, pure waters. So now we run that risk of development of this nature taking place. If it continues to progress in this manner, then yes, we could see pollutants in the river becoming a problem.
Preservation to the west of me and development to the east. And here I am, right in the middle. That's just too good a metaphor to pass up.
After all, isn't this where we find ourselves throughout Alabama? Caught in the middle, caught between our love for the natural wonders of our state and the development we think we need for economic growth. Everywhere you look in Alabama, you can find signs of progress, or, depending on your point of view, signs of loss. On the other hand, don't we still have plenty of unspoiled natural areas to enjoy? We can still enjoy a laid-back canoe ride down a gentle coastal plain stream, or a Sunday stroll along a mountain trail in North Alabama. Even the hustle and bustle of Highway 280 in North Shelby County is but a stone's throw from Alabama's largest state park. The serenity of Oak Mountain State Park belies the commotion that surrounds it.
It seems that no matter where you are in Alabama, you're not far from the wonder of nature or from development that leaves some people wondering.
You know, it's a concern. Population growth can't happen without impact on undeveloped places. And the reason that places like this are popular for people to come and live near is because they're open space. Open space is getting more and more rare. It's a natural fact when you have population growth. More people, less places. And so it's without a doubt inevitable that pressures will continue to increase on National Park Service units, at least as far as access is concerned, and numbers of visitors and so on and so forth.
My husband and I used to vacation to Pigeon Forge, and now we can't even hardly stand to go there because it's so crowded, you can't move. We don't want that to happen here. We want people to come here. We definitely want people to come and visit our region, enjoy the natural beauty, but we don't want it to become so crowded that people no longer come here because of that reason.
I think the biggest challenge we have in America today is making sure that we educate the public well enough so that they understand the value of what's being protected. If we do that, if we do a good job at that, then the decisions that the public is going to make and the concerns that they're going to raise will be educated concerns about balancing the trade-off between access and preservation. But if we just let people come in to see the pretty birds and the leaves and so on and so forth without giving them the ability to understand the value of these kinds of places, then I think we're fighting a losing battle.
Back in the mid-'80s, if you were concerned about environmental issues, you might be labeled a tree hugger, a radical, or a zealot. These days, if you're concerned about environmental issues, you just might be labeled an educator.
It's the bottom of the valley at one time when the Appalachian Mountains were really, really high. And so the top of Lookout Mountain is kind of bowl-shaped. This part cracked and got into the limestone, and it washed away very quickly and left that part folded like this to hold Lookout Mountain. So Lookout Mountain, north and south, runs this way. And about 1,800, 1,900 feet up by the state park, down to Canyon Mouth Park is about 500, 600 feet. And the whole of Little River flows on top of Lookout Mountain. So you have this great watershed, 200 square miles of watershed that goes down through here.
JSU Field School and Little River Canyon Field School has been in operation since the early 90s, around 1991, and we've probably seen around 300,000 folks come through for outdoor recreation and for environmental education. The National Park Service has been wonderful as a partner. We could not do our programs or our educational activities without the help of partners like the National Park Service, the Little River Canyon National Preserve. They are not only a partner as far as our facility is concerned, but they have also been there for interpretive programs, offering their expertise on the trail and to visitors along beside us with our faculty, our professors, and our staff. We've found that the hands-on things like the live animals and the scat that we might show the kids to talk about what they'll encounter on the trails, they retain that information much better than if it's just presented in a lecture-style format or if it's just, you know, something like a slideshow that they're witnessing. Some groups that come out to Little River and to the different areas in our corridor have no prior experience with wilderness and are suffering what we coin loosely as a nature deficit disorder. We do inner city kids programs where we have to actually pull off on the side of the road before we enter the canyon area to let them know that lions and tigers and sharks don't inhabit Little River. And by the time we're through, they're wading in the river and hiking up and very much immersed in that experience. They tell me when we come out here that they have time to think and space to breathe, and that's very important.
Time flows like a river, and you have to wonder, where are we in that flow? Our time, the 21st century, is often referred to as the information age. Certainly, we're inundated with information. But what about knowledge? Information may be available at our fingertips with a high-speed internet connection. Does that make us knowledgeable? And what about the information, the knowledge we've lost? We can flip on the cable or satellite TV and get a pretty accurate weather forecast, but can we read the clouds? Can we smell a coming rain on the wind? Can we anticipate the weather the way our forefathers did? Information, technology, digital television, it's all amazing. Ultimately, though, is going to come down to something that is of this natural world. Ultimately, it will come down to you and me. We will decide. Do we lean toward the west side of the canyon, the preservation of our natural wonders? Do we lean toward the east side of the canyon, the exploitation of our natural resources? Or do we fall somewhere in the middle?
There's been a lot of water over the falls since we were here back in 1985. Our state, our nation, our world has changed. But in many ways, our dream remains the same. Our dream still is to leave this world a better place for our children.
My name's Larry, and I'm a park ranger here.
We want to prepare our children with the best education has to offer. And we want to prepare our children for a better world with the best technology has to offer. Yet, for all our computing power, our children, indeed we ourselves, have needs that are best realized in the natural world. Out here where the river flows, there's time to think, time to consider, time to process the profusion of information that rushes at us every day. Out here, there's time to elevate the spirit. Out here, there's time for fun. Out here, we may even find time to relax. Out here, we may discover time to turn information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom.
Summoned by gravity from the highlands, bound by an irresistible momentum, the river flows. There may be obstacles, there may be diversions. Ultimately, though, the river makes its way.
Discovering Alabama is a production of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, the University of Alabama. This program is supported by grants from the Solon and Martha Dixon Foundation, the Alabama Wildlife Federation, working for wildlife since 1935, the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, State Lands Division,